Welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. My name is Audrey Monkey, and I am your host. Here at Sunshine Parenting, I research, write, speak, and interview podcast guests on the topics of summer camp, happiness, and parenting. In episode 18, I'm talking with Tom Holland, who can help us with all three of my favorite topics. He's formerly the executive director of the American Camp Association and currently the owner and director of Wilderness Adventures. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hi, Tom. It's great to talk to you.
Hi, Audrey. I'm happy to talk with you today.
So to start with, can you just introduce my podcast listeners to who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, my name is Tom Holland, and I have been involved with camps for the past 20 years or so. I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I am the owner and director of Wilderness Adventures, a program that has a trip and travel program for kids around the world. Many of the programs are in national parks and national forests around the country. We also my wife and I run a day camp in the Jackson Hole area called Base Camp. Prior to being here, I've been the owner of Wilderness Adventures for the past 2 years. Prior to being here, my wife and I were really involved at another summer camp in Wyoming for many years, a residential camp program called Teton Valley Ranch. And then from there, I had this amazing opportunity, Audrey, to serve at the American Camp Association in the capacity of Chief Foundation Officer and eventually Chief Executive Officer. And in that role, I got to see camps all over the country and all over the world. So have had a really great experience in the camping world, and camp has, I got my education degree because of camp. Was a high school teacher for a bit, and now love to live, drink, eat, and breathe camp as much as we can, and that goes to like parenting too. So Katherine and I are the parents of 4 kids under the age of 10. So we have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and raising them in Jackson Hole, and often thinking about a camp as we go about our daily practices as parents.
Well, that is awesome. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. You have such a breadth of experience, both in the camp world and now as a parent as well. And so I thought it would be fun just to talk a little bit about some of the ways that you feel like your experiences at camps have influenced your family life and things that maybe you and Katherine learned at camp and you apply at home. So I know you've thought about a couple things that you wanted to share. So why don't you just go ahead and share either, whatever you'd like about what you use in your parenting that comes from your camp background?
Yeah. Well, I have this great, I'm that lucky guy, Audrey, that actually gets to own and operate the program I went on as a kid. So it is this amazing thing. And I remember coming to Wilderness Adventures as a child, and everything that my leaders saw was just like a wonderful moment, right? And they would always point out these things that, like, looking back, I remember, I might say, oh, a deer on the side of the road, or a rainbow, or even clouds in the sky might not have been an exciting moment. But I remember they instilled a sense of wonder and awe and really joy in all that we did, in every day that we had. So we tried to instill that in our programs. And when we became parents, we really talked about who we were going to be as parents, and some things we learned at camp. And this was one of like the core foundations of approaching each day with a sense of wonder and joy. And so, as we thought about this podcast over the Thanksgiving holiday, we were hit with this moment that happened with our kids. And we were just sitting outside, and we saw this plane leaving those smoke tracks behind it. And he was drawing things in the sky. And for you or I, Audrey, as being adults who have seen something like this before, you're like, oh, okay, that happens. But for a 10-year-old, this is unbelievable stuff, right? Like, how is a plane doing this? And for all the rest of my kids, it was the same way. And so we really try to point those things out and be as impressed with them as our children are. And I know that as there are moments where we go through as parents, and with 4 kids, there's those moments of where you're tired and you come home from work and you don't want to be enthusiastic about that thing. But it's so great to show our kids, you're given this day. It's amazing. Make the most of it and find the things that make you scratch your head and wonder, and find those things that give you that smile, that joy inside yourself. And so that's something we really work on as parents is pointing those things out to our kids. It's a really important part of who we are as parents, to find that magic and to show that enthusiasm to our kids with that smile on our face, coming from Katherine and I.
Oh, that is awesome. A lot of what you related to relates to kind of doing stuff outside or being outside with your kids, which I know is a big part of your life and your camp program that you operate, is just getting kids out in nature and being in a place where they see those kinds of things. With the ages of your kids, they're still quite young. What ways have you found to just sort of, get outside with your family and be out there together? What are some of the activities you guys like to do as a family?
Yeah, so living in Jackson Hole, there's a ton of different opportunities. But, we moved to Indiana for a while, and people said, well, you have this passion for the outdoors. How are you going to still instill that? Well, it's about what you determine to be, while you might say, well, you have the Grand Tetons, that's great. And that makes it really easy for us here in Jackson. How did you make it happen in Indianapolis? Well, it was so important to who we are too. And that's a great point. Getting kids outside is something we talk about often. And so it was even backyard stuff, Audrey. I mean, I think it's really important that our kids grow up with a certain amount of dirt under their fingernail, right?
Yep.
I want them to be able to say, okay, I can go out and have some free and unstructured play outside. And additionally, not only do I want to turn them loose as kids, and they do that themselves, because the creativity that you see in a backyard in Indiana is just like the creativity you see in the Tetons with kids under the age of 10. But what I thought was great about the out of doors is myself as a dad engaging with that. For instance, the other day we were in Missouri for the Thanksgiving holiday and playing in the leaves with my kids. That's something I want them to remember. No, this is important. Dad and Mom thought this was really important to get outside and do little things like everything from raking the leaves to jumping through them ourselves, that joy aspect where they see that we approach parenting and we approach life not forgetting those fun aspects of being a child. And then also, we do a lot of family activities ourselves. We would find adventure in every moment, right? We'd say, well, okay, today we're going to go find that new park where, we hear that there's a great new slide, or we were going to find that new state park in Indiana. And there's some great ones, Audrey, if you ever need a recommendation. There's some great ones that we went out and found, so that we could have that trail hike and we could challenge our kids on those moments. And that's another part about that we take with us as, camp directors. We love to look back with our kids and point to that achievement. Mm-hmm. So be it raking all the leaves, oh my gosh, look at all the leaves that you raked, or the big hike that they did that, you didn't complain one bit as you did that huge hike through the Tetons, or the fish that they just caught. Those are things that, feeling achievement, building their own self-confidence. That's something we do when we use the outdoors as a conduit for that.
That's just amazing. It's so funny. I was thinking about the name of your camp, Wilderness Adventures, and then your family sounds like just a constant fun adventure as well. So how great for them to, wherever you are, you make sure that they're having fun outdoor adventure time and they're stopping to enjoy that. That's amazing. So what else did you and Katherine think about when you talked about specific things that you use in your parenting that maybe came as part of your training as camp counselors?
Yeah, I think one of the most important ones is how we talk to our kids. And I think you would, if you came in and you were just like, let me observe your family at nighttime, you would see us, we have a lot of intentionality around, dinner together every day. And when we sit down for dinner, conversation is a really important piece. And being at camp, conversation is so important, engaging everybody, asking appropriate questions, having proper manners. Those things are really important at camp too. So, and those are the types of things that we learned as camp counselors, or even we learned as campers. So that is something we do talk about, and we act upon a lot. And here's how it plays out in the Holland House. We ask our kids to take a night of the week. Every one of them takes 1 or 2 nights a week where they're in charge of guiding the conversation. And so they have to think of their own questions that they're going to ask everybody. And usually they're like kind of the grab out of the hat questions, like, what was your favorite moment of the day? Or what are you excited about tomorrow? But sometimes you have those moments like we did at camp where you're just so impressed with the questions they come up with, which was, questions about looking back. I had a big test in history today. Dad, do you ever remember having a big test, and what was it like? And you see those things come out where they engage us, and it's so much more fruitful than, how was your day today, Madeline? Where you get that one-word answer of good, and you put some onus on them. And the other part that we see that's paying off, especially in our oldest child, who is almost 11, is we see her engaging other adults in conversations, and her friends in conversations who are looking to, in that moment of like, how do we interact with each other, especially in this like digital age of, I just email you or text you. She can go into a conversation and she knows great questions to ask. So those are, we see last night was, the question that my daughter asked was, what was our favorite part of the Thanksgiving meal, and what was our favorite part of the Thanksgiving vacation? And then that developed into what as a kid was my favorite tradition at Thanksgiving. And those pieces, we focus on those things at camp so much that it becomes second nature to us as camp folks. But as parents, it was great to have that recollection. Oh yeah, this is how we should do meals. So that was something we came up with.
Oh, that is awesome. And it is funny because, Tom, you and I, we have had all this camp experience, and sometimes we forget that those things that we do at camp, if you've never been to camp, you might not be aware that those are just great practices. So just all that sharing was so good. And what really stood out to me, which I really haven't done in my own family, is the rotating of the leadership, which is so good to have the kids step up and be the leaders of the discussion, because that's also just teaching great leadership and social skills and everything. So I love that additional point, that not only to have kind of a guided discussion or communication at dinner, but also have the kids take charge of that. So one question for you on a slightly different topic is, given, you have your oldest child is 10, what are your and your wife's rules or ideas around technology, devices, social media? What are you guys thinking in terms of when to let kids be on, how much, that type of thing?
Sure. Well, to be honest with you, at this point, we're just engaging in the conversation here in Jackson. She's just kind of on that cusp, and we have friends obviously who've gone through all this, and she has a few friends that have cell phones, but she does not. So what we are proactively talking about, to be thoroughly honest with you, is, are we modeling appropriate technology usage as parents? Like, are we setting her up for a good example? So while we talk of like, oh yeah, you're Madeline, you're a couple years away, 2-3 years away from your own cell phone, and we really monitor work she does on the internet and with a computer. We talk right now about, are we showing her what a good balance is with technology. One of the stats I love to go over when I was at the American Camp Association was, we would say, there, something like 10 hours a day of a child's life. Some of these kids, on average, in the United States, they're spending on a device. And everyone is I'm appalled by that. But then you look at the amount that adults are spending right? And it's like 14 hours, and you're like, well, it totally makes sense, right? And so what we say is, do our kids see us balancing technology well? And so we do things like we put away our phones when we come home, and they don't see us checking our phone the first thing when we wake up in the morning. I definitely, as you do, as we run businesses, the phone is a very important tool, but I'll slide it in my pocket, and then I'll check it when I get to work. So we really work on that modeling part. That's kind of what we talk about right now. But we're trying to figure it out for when is the right time. But we haven't really hit that moment yet.
Well, it sounds like you're on the right track. And so it's so true. How could we expect our kids to do any of these things we want them to do, whether it relates to sleep or technology use or anything else, if we're not doing it ourselves? So that's awesome. It sounds like you're exactly on the right track for figuring this out in the future. Okay. So just a last question for you is, are there any specific like parenting books or resources or websites that you and your wife especially have enjoyed? And if not, that's okay too. But is there a book or anything that you have liked?
So I would give. So this one is specifically for dads, and I love reading this website called Fatherly. I don't know if you've heard of Fatherly. It's a great blog. I was first introduced to it at the American Camp Association, and it's a little bit about in the throes of being a parent. It is about not losing your own personal identity, right? And it also gives great advice about. I have 3 daughters, raising the example you set as a father, raising young women, or I now have a son too, and what we want to instill in our sons, and it's really great tool for dads out there because it gives an amazing perspective on so many different topics when it comes to parenting, and also some fun, just like what it's like to be a father in your 40s, to going through those steps as well.
That sounds great. I will definitely look that up, and I'll put a link to it on the notes for this episode of the podcast. So finally, I know you've done quite a bit of writing, and you've shared a lot of things both on your blog for your camp and through the American Camp Association. Where can people find just information about both you and about Wilderness Adventures? Why don't you give us the links, and I'll also put them in the notes.
Yes. So if people were looking to find more about Wilderness Adventures, they would want to go to www.wildernessadventures.com. It's the best place to go. That's our website. Unless you're rolling through Jackson Hole, which our headquarters is here, based in Jackson Hole since 1973. And it's a great program with over 25,000 alumni that have been through the Wilderness Adventures family.
And then what about your day camp? Is that open to families who are visiting Jackson Hole? Like, what are your session lengths there, and how does that work? Or is that mostly local families?
It is definitely open. So many people who are rolling through Jackson, and they don't know what to do, and they're looking for that, they want to have an adventure, but they want their kids to have an adventure too. Our base camp program is for first through 6th graders. It is a tremendous program. And for out-of-town kids as well as in-town kids, there's a really good mix of both kids from Jackson in Teton County and kids that are just here on vacation. So our first sessions start middle of June for that program. And it really has the theme there is kind of the first step towards having great experience in the out-of-doors, like we've described a little bit today.
Oh, great. And then what's the website for that program?
Same spot, wildernessadventures.com. You'll see base camp right at the top, and you can link right there.
Okay, perfect. And then I know, is your blog right on the Wilderness Adventures site right now?
It is. I blog with a fair amount of frequency, and so you can check it out right there online. You go to our news section, and there's all of our writings.
Okay, and I'm sure too, if people just Google Tom Holland ACA, they'll find all of your work that you wrote back when you were at the American Camp Association as well. Because I remember there being a lot of articles about play and some of the different things that you were following back then and still are now. So, well, this has been terrific, Tom. You have a lot to share with parents, and I am so glad that we had this time to talk together today.
Audrey, this is super fun, and we love reading what's going on in Sunshine Parenting too. So we appreciate all that you're doing to keep the conversation out there about how to be a great parent.
Well, thank you, and let's do this again sometime. And then I think next time we need Katherine too. So tell her that I want her.
Absolutely.
So we'll either just do her or both of you together, but we'll do this again. And have a wonderful holiday season. And I will put all the notes and everything, and we'll touch base again soon in the new year.
All right. Thanks, Audrey.
Okay. Bye-bye. Take care, Tom. I had such a great time talking with Tom in this episode of the podcast, and I look forward to talking with him or his wife, Katherine, again sometime soon. For notes about our conversation, visit sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode 18. I'll leave you with a quote from Tom's article titled Heading Home, where he talks about how it's challenging often for kids to come home after being at camp and having just such an amazing experience with friends and in the outdoors. Tom says, "And when you find your child in your backyard sleeping in their sleeping bag, don't frown because of the oddity of the moment, but smile because of the gift you gave them."